G'day guys, welcome to Watta Character, brought to you by the Collectiverse. I'm Jason Bond, and today we're going to be going through Hal Jordan, Green Lantern of Earth, Space Sector 2814. Many different takes on this character, but we're going to start where he first appeared. So he first appeared in DC Showcase 22 in October of 1959, and he was created by John Broome and Gil Kane. Now, he originally looked very similar to this here, except more, picture it all as a onesie, and the mask was like a black mask just covering his eyes. What actually happened was, in the origin story is a little bit different than the Rebirth New 52, so we're going to go through the original origin story first. The original origin story does have some similarities, but some vast differences. So, in the original story, he basically saw his father die when he was a young boy in a plane crash as a test pilot for Ferris aircraft. He overcome that fear and enlisted in the United States Air Force and was a fighter race. When he left the Air Force, he became a test fighter pilot for Ferris aircraft, the same company that his father worked for. While he was there, one day he was just in a training simulator, going through some missions and stuff like that, and a green energy bubble appears around him and takes him on a journey, picks the thing up and takes him into the desert where there's a crashed alien. The crashed alien is the existing Green Lantern of Space Sector 2814, and he's injured, and basically he's dying. So the ring searches the planet where the lantern's dying, or the sector where a lantern dies, for a suitable replacement. And the key criteria is, they're good of heart and that they have the ability to overcome fear, because fear is the enemy of will, which is how the ring works. So basically, he gets brought to Abin Sur. Abin Sur explains the duties and responsibilities of the Corps and what the ring does and how it works by reciting the oath. In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. When you say that oath and put it next to the battery, it charges the ring for 24 hours. Now, he did do a lot of things here on Earth and that, but a majority of his early story arcs and that consisted of him learning about Oa and the Guardians and his responsibilities to the rest of the space sector. We're going to skip forward a bit though, guys, because even though there was some big villains like Sinestro and Hector Hammond and stuff like that, the rewrites of these characters down the track were a lot better. Like, they were a bit campy and stuff in the early days. So when we get into the era of the 80s, that's where I think one of the first main story arcs happened with him, was the team up with Green Arrow. Now, funnily enough, Green Arrow is a very wealthy individual, but he's very left in his political leanings, and Green Lantern's very right in his political leanings. So they both viewed the world very differently. And when they teamed up, was brilliant writing by Neil Adams. They tackled issues in America like racism, poverty, corruption, basically all the issues that were really coming to a head in the day. And they tackled them forthright and front on. And like a lot of these books are pretty much considered like comic book gold to this day. Then we're going to go forward, and during that 80s period, there was a lot of things where he was made to go away from Earth for a year because the Guardian said that he was spending too much time on Earth and not paying enough attention to the rest of the space sector that he was assigned to. So they assigned 2 new Green Lanterns. That was where we get John Stewart and the guy with the bowl cut, Guy Gardner. Sorry about that, guys. I know that's a bit of a slip. But with so they took over his place here as the Guardian, as the Green Lanterns of Earth, and he went off into the universe to learn more about his role out there. The next main real big story arc that I find that impacted on me was after the death of Superman. There was an event called the Reign of the Supermen, where there was these 4 Superman imposters, and the one that most of the Justice League and the President of the United States and a lot of the media actually believed was the real Superman was a cyborg Superman. He basically conned the Green Lantern Corps into believing there was a small attack and they had to chase off this alien spacecraft. It was just a diversion while they destroyed Green Lantern's home city of Coast City, and that really started the ball rolling with him becoming, shall we say, turning to the dark side for all our Star Wars fans and that out there. Basically, he got really pissed that the Guardians didn't see what was happening and didn't inform the Lanterns and do more to stop the destruction of his city and the deaths of 8 million people. So he bore that on his conscience. He blamed himself for being stooged by the cyborg Superman and not being there to prevent it. That started his journey into becoming a being called Parallax. He goes back to Oa, basically confronts the Guardians, and then starts basically killing lanterns and stealing their rings till he's got like a ring on each finger and becomes this being called Parallax. With the sole purpose that he wants to bring Coast City back. He wants to alter history, which brings us to 0 Hour, where he teams up with a villain called Exton, and they conceive a plan to rewrite history. Not for the first time in DC Comics, but this was a pretty big event. And basically, Superman, the JLA, and Metron of the New Gods all band together to prevent their plan. Now, not much is heard of him. He's just pretty much as a villainous threat out there in the universe, and he not to be spoken of. And as I said, Earth had many other Green Lanterns after the fact to protect Earth, so he was sort of like pushed to the wayside, and DC were trying to think of a way to get rid of him, to be honest. There was a new Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner, that had popped up too, and he was sort of like gaining traction in the comics and that, so he was going to be the new favoured Lantern over Hal Jordan. And I think, like, the Hal Jordan story arc got a bit stale and stuff like that. Then there came an event called Final Night in the DC Comics. Now, in Final Night, basically the sun was losing its power. In the ultimate act of self-sacrifice, he uses every iota of his power to recharge the sun at the final stages of the graphic novel, and basically brings life back to the sun, replenishes it, but in doing so dies. And of course, for his deeds, he ends up going to like hell. Now, there's another character called the Scepter. People that are big DC fans will know straight away who I'm talking about. Those that don't, putting it basically, he's the right hand of God, the spirit of vengeance. Basically, he punishes those that think they've got away with crimes. Now, the human host, this spirit's bonded with the human host, and the human host had died. Jim Corrigan, or his spirit had gone to heaven because he'd served his time. So the host was Scepter was looking for a new person to bond with, and he chose Hal Jordan and released him from purgatory, and he became the new Scepter there for a while. Then there was the Day of Judgment, which basically undid that, okay? Where basically Hal Jordan comes back, he's not a member of the Green Lantern Corps, and that he's just Hal Jordan back to his old self and stuff like that. Then came Flashpoint and New 52. Now this is where everything changed, particularly for this character. I think DC had realised they'd stuffed it up a bit and like a lot of people were, well, what's happened to Hal? Like he was such, like the team-ups of Hal Jordan and Barry Allen, the Flash, were iconic in the early 80s and 90s and stuff like that. So that's when we've got more of this character here, okay? When we're starting to get more into the New 52 and this one here. So what happened with the New 52, the redo of the origin there was that basically they went more into his family dynamics. You learn more about his brother and his mother and stuff like that. The same thing happened. His father died and he witnessed a plane crash when he was young. Now his mother forbid him from going near aircraft or having anything to do with it after what happened. But he used to, he's a bit of a rebel and he used to sneak out to airfields and stuff like that. And this all culminated in, on his 18th birthday, his brother was waiting till the stroke of midnight to go into his room to give him his birthday present. When he goes in there, the room's empty. Then the next panel in the comic cuts to in the morning and you see him sitting out the front. A US Air Force recruiter. He's opened up the recruitment office and he sees a young boy sitting there. He goes, "Oh, what can I do for you, son?" He goes, "I'm 18 today, sir," and he enlists. And basically his mother disowns him and he has nothing really to do with his family and stuff like that. And he has a stellar career in the Air Force. Does push a few test planes to their limits and crash them and stuff like that, so he does have a few people in the Air Force that don't like him, particularly the higher-ups and stuff like that. And his mum gets sick, and his brother comes and sees him after many years and says, "Listen, Mum wants to see you, she's dying, but the only condition is you can't be part of the Air Force if you come to see her." So he doesn't want to quit, but he ends up getting into a fight with a superior officer and striking a superior officer, so he gets kicked out. And it's too late. When he gets there, his mum's already dead, and it's a real big tragedy and stuff like that. And his brother blames him, saying that because of the stress and everything that you put her through, it led to her condition. So he also has that on his heart. He bears the burden of that. Now he wants to go back, begs for his role back at the Air Force, and they will not give him flight clearance because he's under charges. So he ends up having to leave the Air Force, and Ferris Aircraft throw him a lifeline, basically as a, feeling sad for what happened to him after what happened to his dad and stuff like that, and realise that he's a brilliant pilot, so they could use him too, so it's, benefiting both parties. So he goes there. He was working for a different company altogether, and then the company's going to be bought by a Ferris Aircraft, and he's dejected and everything. He's sitting in like a hulking plane wreck, and here's where the big difference changes. In this one, you actually get to see Abin Sur more of the. They fast track a lot of the history in the New 52, so there's a lot of story arcs all twined into one. There was also events called Blackest Day, Brightest Night, and stuff like this, which I don't want to really go into because they're different story arcs altogether, but really definitely have a read of them. Now, what actually happened was, I've got to remember all this. So Abin Sur has arrested Atrocitus, who's the leader of the Red Lanterns, okay? And he's got him in a construct in his ship, and he's telling him that he has to take him to Earth and that to fulfill his destiny and all this sort of stuff. It's all very shadowy and stuff, so people that were fans of the DC comics beforehand sort of knew where this was heading, but if you're a new reader, it's new and exciting, so I don't want to spoil it for you. Definitely give it a read, so Green Lantern 1 all the way through, okay? And so basically what happened was, Atrocitus instills fear in Abin Sur and breaks the constructs and mortally wounds him. And basically informs him, your ring didn't fail you, you failed the ring, and the ring takes off to find a new host. So as I said, Hal Jordan was sitting in this hulking plane wreck, just lamenting his life, where it had all gone wrong and everything, and what's he going to do now that this other company is going to come. He doesn't know that they want him to work for him yet. And basically the ring, same as before, takes him to Abin Sur, who explains to him in greater detail, not just his role and that in the Corps, but the prophecies of the Darkest Night, the Brightest Day, the Red Lanterns, and informs him that and just tells him one name, Sinestro. Now, people from the old comics think, Sinestro, he's going to be a big baddie. He actually doesn't start off bad at all in this continuity, but that's a story for another day when we do Sinestro. So, basically, he saves a plane from crashing, which has got Carol Ferris and that on it, and it puts a disguise on him and whatever, so like this, so he can't be recognised. And basically, the ring then takes him to Oa, and he starts learning about his abilities and training with Kilowog and stuff like that. And in the comics, he takes a very major turn, like in the New 52 and Rebirth. For example, I don't want to go into details, but there is an event that leads to the destruction of the Corps, the death of many Green Lanterns. Hal Jordan takes it upon himself to rebuild the Corps and become the new leader of the Corps. Creation of 2 new Green Lanterns here on Earth, Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz, and they've got a conjoined battery to teach them to work together, to teach them teamwork and stuff like that. And he now resides on Mogo, which is Oa's been destroyed, and Mogo is the new planet. So a lot has happened in the New 52 and Rebirth with Green Lantern, and they're amazing reads. There's a number of titles. There's Green Lanterns, which covers the new Green Lanterns here on Earth, Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz. There's Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. That's the one that branches off after the Green Lantern title gets taken away from Hal Jordan and he goes into a new book of his own. Now, absolutely fantastic reads, guys. Now, we get into the secret shame. In 2011, Warner Brothers and DC tried to do a comedy version of Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds. Thank God he's better as Deadpool because his persona suited that more. Was not a fan of the film at all. They got a lot of things wrong, like Parallax, Sinestro, and just a lot of core fundamentals in the movie, not just to mention the really poor CGI outfits and stuff like that. So then we've got this guy here, which is the New 52 one, and this one here. Now, in TV and films, there's a lot of animated films that I highly recommend for people to watch if they're not into the comics, which covers a lot of these story arcs anyway. Emerald Knights, a DC Warner Brothers animated film, goes through not just... It's actually Hal Jordan teaching a bunch of recruits, and there's a book on Oa called The Book of Oa, which recites all the journal entries of every single Green Lantern and their stories. So it goes through like 5 or 6 story arcs of Great Lanterns and how they've influenced the universe. Then there's First Flight, which basically goes through like the origin story that I've just explained to you for the New 52, and is sort of like leads into Justice League War. Okay, and then there's Justice League Throne of Atlantis, Justice League versus the Teen Titans, and many other things like that. Now, books. Essential reading material, guys. If you are a comic book fan and you want to learn more about this character and their origins and more in the New 52 and Rebirth. Emerald Dawn, Green Lantern Emerald Dawn, books 1 and 2. Absolutely fantastic reads. Green Lantern Ganthet's Tale, which tells the story of the Guardians, and you learn a lot more about the creation of the Corps and the Manhunters and the Red Lanterns and stuff like that. Green Lantern Rebirth, which covers when he gets separated from Scepter and brought back. Okay, and we're not talking... There's also Green Lantern Rebirth issue number 1 where they do the Rebirth universe as well. I'm not talking about that, but that is a good read as well. Green Lantern's Secret Origins, written by Jeff Johns. Absolutely fantastic. Recounts the origin story that I just recited to you there in a lot more detail and a lot more hints of what was coming up in the future of the book. The Sinestro Corps War. Now, going back before the current continuity, you want to look at Blackest Night, Brightest Day. Okay, now if you're a fan of zombies, if you like the Marvel Zombie story arc or something like that, this is fantastic. It's a different take on, I would say, a zombie sort of thing. It's more about the god of death, Necron, and War of the Light was also another one where basically you find out more about the emotional spectrums and the different rings and the different chords and stuff like that, which really opens your eyes to a lot of different story arcs. And you know, like most interesting of all is probably La Flea's, the Orange Lantern, you know, and there's only one of him, but yeah, it's a pretty interesting read. Now, as I said, he's had many different incantations. If you want to learn more about this character, go through the read list of the movies that I've just told you about. And other than that, there's not much more I can tell you guys. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And remember to like and subscribe. Next week, we're going to be doing Barry Allen, the Flash. Not Wally West, Barry Allen. Okay, guys? So, enjoy, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.